It is week 15 of the 2025 NFL season, and the Cleveland Browns are hitting the road to the Windy City, or I guess in this case you could call it the freezer, to take on the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. I've got Brendan Chagru on the show from Bears on Tap. Welcome in.
What's up, Josh? Great to be here. Excited to talk some football. And yeah, it is going to be extremely cold. Anybody who's going to the game, this is definitely going to be one to bundle up. And yeah, this is like old school, just bruising, battered football. I'm excited for it. I love these cold games.
Yeah. Um, don't know how much longer we'll be able to have these cold games because I know both the Browns and the Bears are looking to build new dome stadiums in the suburbs of their respective cities, but we can get into that later in the game. But I want to start with the fact that, you know, this game is right in the middle of two Packers games for you guys. Like last week, you were at Lambeau. Next week, you host them in Chicago. So, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like this could be a trap game for you guys?
It definitely could be. And I think that's like the way a lot of people were talking after this past week going into the first Packers game. Of course, it was a really tough loss. It was a good fought game where it was close for much of the day. Caleb Williams throws an interception on fourth down, trying to make a play in the end zone. And then immediately after the game, there was a lot of talk like, okay, well, we'll get the Packers in 2 weeks. It's all about the Packers in 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, well, we still have to get to the Browns this week. And I know that you guys haven't had a great season coming in at 3-10. I feel like Ben Johnson, who has done just a phenomenal job for the Bears this year as a first year head coach, has preached a lot that this is a desperation win that the Bears need. They cannot fall into any sort of trap. They have to make sure that they give the Browns their full attention, and then we'll see what the Packers have to do because the Bears go from the number one seed all the way to the seventh seed in a matter of like a few hours on Sunday. And if you do end up losing to the Browns, the playoff chances, there's a considerable hit there. So I'm a little concerned that maybe some people aren't taking this game as seriously. I'm not concerned that Ben Johnson is one of those people. Just the way that he's talking, the way he has been getting his team prepared, it feels like that they're going to come into this and give it everything they got. And hopefully for the Bears, it's a bounce back spot. But I'm sure for the Browns, it's you guys are probably just limping your way to the end of the season with all the injuries you've got going on.
Yeah. Um, and the Browns have won two straight against the Bears, but we haven't had much success in Chicago. I looked this up.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm correct, I don't think we've beaten the Bears in Chicago since like 1969 or something. Something
Yep, that's
crazy.
correct.
So, granted, we don't play you guys in Chicago that often. The last time we played you in Chicago was 2017. I would honestly love it if we were divisional rivals. Um, if I could reshape the divisions, I would put the Browns and Bears alongside the Bills and the Lions in what I would call the Great Lakes division.
That's not bad. I kind of feel the same way, Josh. I'm not gonna lie, because and this is I know I'm not I'm comparing two different teams here, but
Sure.
this past year, yeah, back in November, I had the chance to go to Cincinnati for the first time to see the Bears Bengals game. And crazy win aside, because that was one of the craziest, probably the craziest game I've seen in person. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the vibe. Like the drive wasn't too bad from Cincy to Chicago. I've wanted to go to a Cleveland Browns game when they face the Bears in Cleveland because it feels like the fan bases are probably a little bit similar, where there's been some mountains of success, but a lot of valleys where things haven't gone well. And I think that the two fan bases could commiserate. It'd be well. I'm sure you remember these two teams had the fourth preseason game as like an annual match for years and years. So we don't get that anymore. But I would like to see more of the Browns. I think the games are usually competitive. Something weird always usually seems to happen, and yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I remember I was at the game the last time we played you here in Cleveland when you threw that Hail Mary, and I'm trying to remember which receiver it was. Like,
Darnell Mooney.
yeah, he literally kicked the ball away. That's when Joe Flacco was our starting quarterback. But no, looking at this game, you know, we have Shador Sanders as our starting quarterback. Caleb Williams is your starting quarterback. And I have to say, Caleb has completely turned things around. I don't know if that's more so because of Ben Johnson or because of Caleb, but he looks completely night and day.
I'm glad to hear you say that because it is interesting to get different perspectives and different fans who, watch games not differently, but aren't as like ingrained as maybe me or other people who cover the team. Caleb does look much better. The stats may not show it, but his pocket presence has improved. I think a lot of that is Ben Johnson, who, from what I'm told from different veterans on the team, they have never seen a coach ride a quarterback as hard as Ben Johnson has with Caleb Williams. From the day that he got in the building and those two could start working together, it has just been consistent and constant. Sometimes even just like, it's no nonsense. The way that he's talking to him, the way that he's correcting the plays that are missed. And it's kind of some tough love quite a bit. But the way that Caleb has bought in to what Ben Johnson is selling, the offensive line improvements as well, because Ryan Poles went out and got Joe Tooney from the Chiefs, traded for Jonah Jackson from the Rams, signed Drew Dahlman, helped develop Darnell Wright with some new coaches. Like, that offensive line has been a key as well to keep Caleb upright. So just the mix of the coaching, the offensive line, and the scheme, Caleb does look a lot more comfortable. Now, he needs to be more accurate with some of his passes, but you can definitely see the star power in what he's able to do. I mean, that was on full display this past weekend against the Packers with some of those ridiculous throws. And that's also just a lesson to everybody that judging quarterbacks in year one, as you know, with Shador and other rookie quarterbacks that you've had, progress is never linear, and you kind of have to let things play out and get the right people in the right places to get the most out of some of these guys. And we're seeing that with Caleb in year two.
You know what's interesting? You mentioned how we've had a number of different quarterbacks. I feel like our our teams are kind of on similar parallels in that regard. Like, you've been searching for your franchise quarterback for years, and we continue searching. Maybe Shador is going to ultimately be the answer. We shall see. Um, I I was a big Dylan Gabriel fan, so I'm a little bit disappointed that it didn't work out. Um,
Really?
yeah, because I saw how well he played at the University of Oregon last year, especially in that big top 3 showdown against Ohio State. And so when we drafted him in the 3rd round, I was super excited about it. Of course, it didn't end up translating the way I thought. And I knew eventually Shador was going to be in there. I personally, I wasn't a fan of drafting him because we had already drafted Dylan Gabriel, but 2, since Jimmy Haslam took over this team years ago, it feels like we have a track record of either drafting these types of quarterbacks or trading for them. We drafted Baker Mayfield and later, of course, traded for number 4. I'm not going to say his name. And weirdly, he's been cleared to practice. And then we end up drafting Shador Sanders. So to me, it's like we keep drafting like these quarterbacks that have some bag, or bringing in, I should say, these quarterbacks that have some type of baggage to them, like off the field baggage. Like Shador had the fact that he's Deion Sanders' kid, and everybody was saying, "Oh, he's going to be a first-round quarterback," and then of course the story of the draft ended up being, oh, he dropped all the way to the 5th round, and, blah 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 blah. And you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, there's a stigma with both franchises that they just cannot develop quarterbacks. I mean, each one has the meme that goes around. The Browns with the jersey, the infamous jersey that has all the quarterback names. The Bears with the lack of 4,000-yard passers that gets brought up every other week. And look, last year people were kind of having the same sort of conversations with Caleb that the organization just doesn't know how to develop quarterbacks. But eventually, you just got to get the right people involved with the right quarterback. And I hate to say it, and I'm sure you know it, but the Browns had that with Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski. I mean, he clearly was the best option. He provided the most stability, had the most success. I think the issues that happened were some things with the players. I mean, we can all look back at Odell Beckham and his father getting involved, Baker playing through injury and
That
not
was
being
my
able
biggest
to.
issue.
Yeah, and you're kind of seeing it a little bit with Tampa now. It feels like when Baker's hurt and he tries to battle, it just isn't the right sort of fit, and things just kind of go south. So, and instead of trying to ride with that and find a way to have some stability, of course, the Browns do everything to get Deshaun Watson. It feels like just both franchises have gotten to a point where you could find some success, but things don't work out, and then you get the wrong people involved with the wrong quarterback, and it just doesn't work out. And I'm hopeful now. I feel confident that this marriage between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams will work. I do think that I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. I think that he's kind of been given a bad sort of set of circumstances with these quarterbacks. I
Yeah.
would like to see him actually with a high priced draft pick who can actually develop with him. But it just feels like the Browns are patchworking the quarterback position over the last few years. And I'm very curious to see what happens because Shador has shown me a little bit over the last couple of games. I don't know if you feel comfortable going into week 1 of next year with him as your starter, and that's kind of the plan A. But I would like to see what Stefanski does with somebody with maybe more talent and more time to actually develop them.
Unfortunately, I don't know if Stefanski's going to be here next season because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of talk that him and Andrew Berry could be fired after this season, which I think that's part of the problem with the Cleveland Browns, honestly, is
Yeah.
we are such an unstable franchise. And Kevin Stefanski is the longest tenured head coach that I honestly can remember in my 28-year lifetime. And that's saying something. Like I can we've had like Pat Shermer as our head coach, Mike Payne, Rob Kaczynski, Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini. I'm sure I'm missing others, but
Butch Davis.
yeah, but it's like most of those guys only got like 1 or 2, maybe 3 seasons at most. Like Stefanski, he's been here for a while, and and yes, he's won Coach of the Year twice and gotten us into the playoffs twice. And I've been trying to use that as an argument to keep him, but each week it's just becoming harder and harder for me as a Browns fan to say, yeah, I think Kevin Stefanski is going to stay. I personally don't want to fire him as our head coach. I like him, as you said, but each week it just becomes harder for me to definitively say, yes, he's going to stick around.
I can understand it, and I think if I were in a similar position and kind of watching the same thing over and over, I would probably say, yeah, it looks like the time is right. Maybe I am holding on to the few playoff wins that he did have, but I do wonder if Andrew Berry is going to be on that similar path because I like the rookie class that the Browns have. I think there's a lot of building blocks there. I mean, Shador and Dylan Gabriel aside, because I think they could be good backup quarterbacks, but Mason Graham's been solid. The trade with the Jaguars was really good. Carson Schweisinger is phenomenal at linebacker.
He
Harold Fanning
reminds me,
Jr., Quinshon Judkins.
yeah, Carson Schlesinger. I know this is high standard in Chicago, but tell me if you see it similarly. I see Carson Schlesinger as a bit of a young Brian Urlacher.
That's not that's not too far off. I would agree with that. Maybe more Luke Kuechly, but in that similar vein where they're great all around players and they're flashing like early too. Like Kuechly, Urlacher, both of those guys just were shot out of a cannon their rookie seasons and just lit the defense on fire. And that's exactly what Carson has done. It helps with a really good front that the Browns have, led by Myles Garrett, but I don't think that comparison is too far off.
By the way, Urlacher is one of my favorite players of all time. Um, just the way he played was something special, along with Devin Hester, of course. And when you mention Devin Hester, of course, you have to bring up the opening kickoff touchdown in Super Bowl 41 against the Indianapolis Colts. I still can't believe you guys got to that Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as your quarterback. That was one of the more bizarre things I've seen. But again, focusing on this game, you mentioned Myles Garrett, so I'll talk about him a little bit. Because we had the whole offseason drama with him requesting a trade, and then we present him with some type of quarterback plan, which from what I heard involved us trying to trade for Dak Prescott. And then we go, hey, you want $40 million a year? And he's like, okay, where do I sign on the dotted line? And it's like, so I get that he's frustrated with yet another losing season. And I want to say, yeah, I understand that. But at the same time, I'm like, you could have held out and continued to say, no, I want to be traded. But now you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it.
That's what the money's for. It's exactly what the money's for. If you feel bad, if you feel upset about losing, just look at your bank account and see how much more money you got, because you're exactly right. This was the chance for him. He took a stand and said, I'm done losing. I've done everything I can. I've given my, heart and soul to this organization, my blood, sweat, and tears, and I want to play for a winner. I want to trade. Totally within his right. And he goes back and signs for more money. And it's like, okay, if that's your motivation, then that's fine. And I kind of liken it to somebody like Carmelo Anthony from the NBA back when in like the early 2010s, because I'm obviously a Bulls fan. I was
Yeah.
hoping that Carmelo would sign with the Bulls back in 2014. He talked about wanting to play for a winner, and he goes back to New York and takes the money. And back then, the Knicks were just a joke of a franchise. They're much better now. But I had said, okay, that's your motivation, and that's fine. Like, all power to you. All power to these guys to get the most money they can, because this sport is so unforgiving. But then don't just complain and yell and kind of like be sour after losing, because this is exactly what you signed up for and you knew what you were getting into. So it is a shame though, because Myles Garrett, he is such a dominant player. He is far and away the best edge right now in football, and he's definitely playing for some history as we get to the end of the season, which is both exciting, but for the Bears fans, I'm sure they're like, let's hope he doesn't get to Caleb too much this weekend, and he can make some history next week.
Yeah, but Caleb showed in that Packers game that he does have some mobility, which could be beneficial for him. I want to ask you about the receiving core though, because you guys drafted DJ, or I'm sorry, you traded for DJ Moore, you drafted Roma Dunze, you got Cole Kmet, then you go and draft Colston Loveland, you get DeAndre Swift, and I believe you have a second running back. Oh, Manungai, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel like you have a definitive number one wide receiver? Or do you just feel like it's an overall good group of skill position players?
That's a very good question. I would say it's a very good group of skill position players that don't quite fit what the Bears want to do right now. And I don't know if that's a scheme issue. I don't know if that's a coaching issue. It could be a player issue as well. So DJ Moore coming in 2023 was far and away the number one wide receiver. He was Justin Fields' guy. He had 1,300 yards. The Bears draft Rome Odunze last year, and you can kind of see like, okay, maybe DJ goes to a number like high end two role. And remember, the Bears had Keenan Allen last year, so they kind of had a three-headed monster at the receiving core. This year, Rome has taken the mantle of wide receiver one. He had that early stretch where he was scoring a ton of touchdowns. He leads the Bears in every single receiving category. He's clearly Caleb Williams' guy. And DJ Moore has kind of fallen off a cliff. I mean, he's a factor at times, but whether it's a usage issue, I think there's chemistry issues with him and Caleb. You have Luther Burden, who was drafted this past year as well, who is kind of like a DJ Moore clone with how he runs and what his build is like. You have the two tight ends, like you mentioned, Loveland and Komet. I think they play off each other well. They're solid pass catchers, Loveland especially, but they're both good, willing run blockers. So I guess right now the Bears don't have that star at the skill position player right now. It could be Rome Odunze. It could be Colston Loveland, but they have just a bunch of really good guys. And I think it works for right now because the offense goes through a ton of different guys. Everybody's going to eat a different game. I guess we were just thinking that players like DJ Moore and Rome Odunze would be a little more consistent with how they would get their targets and how they would get their production. And that just hasn't happened.
So it's interesting you're talking about DJ Moore in the way you are, because my co-host on another show I do, he thinks the Bears should trade DJ Moore this offseason.
Yeah, that's kind of been the talk as of late here in Chicago as well, man. It's a little complicated because of his contract. He's got a lot of dead money because he just signed a pretty big extension in the summer of 2024, and it really just kicked in this year. So it's going to be complicated to find a trade partner. His value is tanked. Really, like for somebody who could have maybe netted like a second round pick a year ago, you might be looking at like a fourth or fifth round pick, depending on how the money shakes out. It stinks because DJ, he's durable. It seems like he does the dirty work. Like he blocks well. His route running's not the best. He's not the most refined route runner in that sense. He could make things happen with the ball in his hands and move in space, but it just feels like there's a disconnect with what he's being asked to do right now and where this offense is going. And I'm not sure if it gets better. I think he's definitely a trade candidate for next year. Really, the Browns might make sense because on your end, Jerry Jeudy has shown flashes. I by the way, aside, I loved Jerry Jeudy coming out of college. I'm shocked that his career never took off the way I thought it would. I think he's a good receiver, but the Browns don't really have anybody behind him. It's really just Jerry Jeudy and the tight ends, and that's about it. So I don't know. Would you take DJ Moore?
It's interesting you say that because I don't even feel like Jerry Jeudy is a definitive number one wide receiver for us. I really don't.
Right.
Like, and even when we had Amari Cooper, I didn't feel like he was a definitive number one for us. I don't know the last time we really had a definitive number one wide receiver where it's like, it's 3rd and 5, where, like in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow is looking for Jamar Chase. Or in Minnesota, JJ is looking for JJ. That type of thing. I don't feel like we have that here in Cleveland. And Rome Odunze could become that for Caleb in Chicago. I wouldn't say he's quite there yet, but he's close to breaking through.
Yeah, and I'll also say real quick about Rome, he is playing through a stress fracture in his foot, so that has slowed him down the last few weeks. He was doing well at the beginning of the season, and then when this popped up, it clearly slowed down his production. But I totally get what you mean. I would say for the Browns, it had to have been since Jarvis Landry, getting that stuff, being Baker's favorite target for a few years.
Yeah, Jarvis. I would say Jarvis is the last time we had a definitive number one wide receiver. And since you mentioned Baker, as much as I did like him here in Cleveland, there were two issues I really had with him. One were all the progressive commercials in the stadium. It was like, stop with all the commercials, focus on throwing touchdowns and playing quarterback. And since you mentioned, his injury stuff in Tampa, when he suffered the injury in week 2 against Houston in 2021, ironically the week before we played you guys, and he suffered that shoulder injury, he tried to be what I call a Cleveland tough guy and play through it and be like, hey, I can be a Cleveland type of guy where, Cleveland and Chicago, it's like they're both blue collar, hardworking type of people. And that's what I felt like he tried to be. Whereas I wish he had just, shut it down the rest of the season, gotten the surgery, come back in 2022, and let's see what you got. But instead, like I said, he tried to be too much of a Cleveland tough guy. And I think that's part of the reason why we shipped him out to Carolina.
And that's also where doctors and team staff need to come in and kind of protect the player from himself too. It's unfortunate because, yeah, watching Baker in Cleveland was so much fun, and I'm sure you guys kind of look back and see what he's doing, because overall he's been great in Tampa. I know he's not been great the last few weeks, but considering what you had and now what's going on now, it's probably tough to look back on.
Yeah, but it's also hard to say whether he would have turned into what he is with Tampa if he had stayed here in Cleveland. Hindsight is always 2020, I think is how the expression goes.
Yep.
I feel like if Justin Fields had panned out in Pittsburgh or with the Jets, Bears fans might be saying the same thing. He didn't necessarily pan out, so I don't really hear those types of conversations. Ironically, Justin Fields, I believe, was drafted in 2021 here in Cleveland. So that's a bit ironic there. And then he made his first start here in Cleveland, where we sacked him 9 times.
Yeah, that was a forgettable day. That's a very forgettable day.
No, but circling back to this game, you mentioned it. It's going to be bitterly cold in this game. So I'll be curious to see how Shador handles that. But I actually think that favors the Bears because you have a definitive 2 running back monster with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. And that's going to mean your offense can sustain long drives. That means our defense has to stay on the field longer. And as much as I love Myles Garrett and Mason Graham and others along our front, we gave up almost 200 yards to Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans last week. And the Titans stink. So knowing that we now have to face a more well-established running game, that definitely scares me.
It should. The Bears are so physical up front. They set the tone early. I've said that Ben Johnson is the king of, I'm calling them FU drives, where the Bears are just holding the ball for 8 minutes at a time. They're racking up 15 to 20 plays, maybe not 20, but 15 to 18 plays a drive, and just beating the crap out of a defense slowly and methodically. And it keeps guys on the field. Guys are getting gassed. I don't know if you watched last week's game, but Micah Parsons was huffing and puffing on the sidelines. And look, I think part of the reason, so I was doing a show with Bears on Tap. One of the hosts, Q, he was pointing out that it really seemed like the Browns were just kind of hunting for Myles Garrett to get the sack record. Like, they weren't really protecting the running lanes. They were just sort of sending guys and hoping that they were going to be able to sack Cam Ward and Miles was going to be able to get closer and closer to the record. It just felt like, in his eyes, and I agree with him after watching it again, they just weren't playing the run as disciplined as they should be. So I'm wondering if that's going to happen again the same way this time. But regardless, especially with guys like missing like Malik Collins, I know he's out for the season. And with how strong the interior is for the Bears offensive line, this really is going to be a ground and pound game where both running backs are just going to keep the ball moving, keep the feet churning. And it could be a situation where Shador's on the sideline for like 10, 15 minutes, maybe longer of like real time. He's getting cold. And then what does that look like? So yeah, I would be right to be, you have the right idea of being concerned about this Bears running game. It is that good.
Yeah. So we got a question here. Grandizer, he says, Brandon, before the 2025 season, what was your Bears regular season record prediction? Are you on pace if you had reaching the playoffs? Are you surprised with what kind of season your Bears are having?
So I do this a couple times with Bears Wire. We do like the early predictions and then the like last minute, but right before the regular season predictions. Initially, I had them at, it was either 10-7 or 11-6. And I was like, that feels high to me. And so going into this regular season, I tempered my expectations. I went down to 8-9 because I figured the Bears would improve. I was a lot more concerned about the schedule at the time. The Bears did have some breaks with injuries. They didn't have to face certain quarterbacks and certain players missed. So they exceeded my expectations overall this year. I thought they might be like a fringe playoff team. Oh, hello. And I just wasn't really sure like how the season would pan out. So no, Ben Johnson has far and away exceeded my expectations. He's done exactly what I wanted him to do, which is help develop Caleb Williams, reestablish a winning culture, because the culture in Chicago was so bad, guys. Like I can't tell you the Eberflus days this like a year ago, right before he got fired. The locker room was fractured. There was no hope. And to go from that to this, where Ben Johnson has the entire locker room believing in him, he's ripping off his shirt. It's a complete 180.
Yeah. How's the saying go? Good, better, best?
Good, better, best. Never let it rest. So your good gets better and your better gets best. I cannot believe like it's taken on a life of its own, Josh. Like there's t-shirts being made. There's billboards out there. We got hot dog stands selling free hot dogs for the Bears, doing great stuff. Like it is, I feel bad. I'm sorry. Cause I know you guys are not like, it's not a great season in Cleveland right now, but
no,
Bears fans are relishing this winning culture for the first time in a long time here.
Yeah. No, you talked about your preseason predictions. When I did my preseason predictions with my co-host Brandon Lewis on our show Championship Rings that we do, I had the Bears going 10-7, finishing in third place in the NFC North and capturing the 7th seed. So they've even exceeded my expectations. Granted that right now they are the 7th seed, but the fact that you were the number 1 seed going into that Packers game was crazy, and you were riding a 5-game winning streak, and it felt great that a Bears-Packers game actually meant something again. Like, the last time I remember a Bears-Packers game having that much of a stake was the regular season finale back in 2013 in Chicago. I hate to remind you of this, but when Aaron Rodgers threw the game-winning touchdown pass, they end up winning the division. You guys are left out of the playoffs. And the last time I remember a game being important prior to that was the 2010 NFC Championship.
You're spot on. I said the same thing because some Bears fans were like, this is the most important game since 2010 or 2013. Of course, both of those were just heartbreaking losses, but that's what makes it fun too. Like, because for so long it has been a one-sided rivalry, and Bears fans would treat the Packers game as like something where they're just going to get their ass beat. And, frankly, that's what happened. And usually on a national stage as well. So the fact that like the NFL world was so into this Bears Packers game, the rivalry means something again. The coaches are into it, the players are into it. It's just better for football. And I'm glad that other fan bases like, other fans like you and other fan bases are seeing that, because for us, we would always say like, oh yeah, it's the best rivalry in the NFL. But then we would look back and say, well, it hasn't really been much of a rivalry. So when it actually is, it feels like there's nothing like it. And yeah, now we get them again in 2 weeks. But of course, the Bears have to take care of business against Cleveland. And like I said, Ben Johnson, I applaud him for not treating this like a trap game. And this really could be I don't want to say get right opportunity, but it'll just be a good opportunity to see what they're made of after going through their first real adversity for the first time in well over a month.
It's not surprising to me that the Bears are a 7-point favorite. But he has another question for you. Who do you have as your Bears MVP? Or maybe one on offense, one on defense? Any special teamer that grabs you?
So that's a very good question. I haven't thought about this yet. I would say the MVP, if I'm okay, I'll exclude coaches because I would say Ben Johnson, and that's a cop out. So I will pick a player. My MVP probably has to be I'll say one of the three interior offensive linemen. I'll say Joe Thuney, because the offensive line was such just a turnstile this past year. It was so bad. Ryan Poles rebuilt it, and bringing in Joe Thuney, who has that winning pedigree and has just been nothing but phenomenal for this team. Getting him for a steal for a 4th-round pick is crazy. So I'll say any combination of Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, or Joe Thuney, because all of them have been just near the top of different metrics when it comes to pass blocking, run blocking, all of that. And then defensive MVP, this one's more easier. I'll say Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard has just turned back the clock at age 32. He leads the league in interceptions. He's reading quarterbacks like children's books when it comes to jumping routes. I would say for you guys, Josh, like that's going to be something Shedeur Sanders is definitely going to have to watch out for, because I can very well see Kevin Byard getting another pick this weekend. And my surprise, maybe not MVP, but like the most improved / surprise player is Nahshon Wright. I'm sure if Browns fans haven't heard of him, he's been the starting cornerback for the last for much of the season. He came in as just a depth player, and he really wasn't expected to do much of anything, but injuries forced him into the starting lineup. He leads cornerback. He's tied with J.C. Horn in terms of cornerback interceptions. He's on his way to a Pro Bowl season, and without him, the Bears probably don't win at least 1 or 2 games. He's made some game-changing plays for them.
So I'm going to jump in on this question if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think my offensive MVP for the Bears would actually be your rookie tight end, Colston Loveland. I think him and Caleb have developed a great chemistry. It seems like, we were talking about who's that go-to guy when it's like 3rd down. It seems like Caleb looks for Loveland a lot of times in those types of situations. So I would either give it to him or Kyle Monungai. I think both of them have come in and just had a major impact for your offense. And then in terms of your defense, I would probably either say Tyreek Stevenson, your cornerback, or one of your linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds.
Well, Stevenson, I'll disagree with you on Stevenson. He really hasn't done much this year. He's been hurt. And if anything, I think with Jalen Johnson coming back, Nahshon Wright may be taking his starting spot. Tyreek is scheduled to play this week. He's had a couple moments, but I just don't think he stands out. Tremaine Edmonds, however, was well on his way to being team's MVP for the defense. He was having a career year. Unfortunately, he went on IR with an injury. We'll see if the Bears get him back this year. I think they're set to. This is the fourth game of the IR stint, so he's eligible to come off beginning next week. But Tremaine, he still is like, I think he's tied for third in interceptions, and he hasn't played since week 11 or week 12. But so I'll give you that one's a good call. Tremaine was really, really solid before getting hurt.
To be fair, I'm not quite as familiar with the Bears defense.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
But I know you have to get going soon, so we'll wrap things up. So in terms of score predictions, as much as I love the Browns, I'm an honest fan. If I don't think they're going to win a game, I'm not going to pick them to. We are not a good team right now. We've lost 2 in a row. And this very well could be a trap game for you guys, being that you have the Packers again next week at home. But in this case, I'm going to say the Bears win. I originally said like a 31-23 type of game, but knowing the weather conditions, I'll say it's a little bit lower scoring. I'll say like a 23-17 type of game with the Bears winning.
I'm a little more pessimistic on the Browns side than you are. I would have the Bears at about 24-10. I originally had 21-10, but look, the Browns are coming in limping and hurt. I mean, the team is going to have 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen out. The Bears front 7 isn't great right now, but I think they can really take advantage of some of those mismatches. We'll see if Joel Bitonio plays as well. He's the 5th that could be out. So your entire starting offensive line could be missing. I think that's impactful. Dennis Allen has feasted on young quarterbacks. As you mentioned before, Shedeur Sanders playing in the cold, that's going to be a factor to see if he can hold up and, if he's going to take some hard hits, hold on to the ball too long. I just feel like this is a game where the Bears are going to run it again, run it some more, maybe pass a little bit, but then get back to running it and just find a way to get up early and maybe not let up. So, it's probably not going to be the most exciting game, but I think it's going to be a fairly decisive win.
Yeah. No, I totally understand why you have this. Have the opinion you do. Is there any type of update, by the way, on the Bears building that new stadium in Arlington Heights? Like, is it definitively happening?
So this is it's a mess. It's a mess, man. So here's the latest. What I'm told is their full plan is back to Arlington Heights because there was a lot of going back and forth where it was originally Arlington Heights. The Bears get a new president. The new president wants to build back in the city of Chicago. There's issues with legislation. They're not going to get the money there. They're not going to get the approvals. Now they're back to Arlington Heights. But the problem is they're still looking for funding. The Bears don't necessarily have the capital needed to build a stadium. They're hoping the state will help fund the surrounding areas and working with the different communities there out in Arlington Heights. I'm not too far from the area. I know it well. So the plan is there, but they have not broken ground yet. It just feels like they're stalled out when it comes to getting the cash and getting the funding for it. So it's still pretty much status quo right now. That's the plan. They want to have it open by 2030 and nothing's happened yet. So I think we just have to wait for the next legislative session taking place in Springfield to see what's going to happen there. But it's been a mess. And I feel like aren't the Browns like a little bit closer? I know I saw the renderings for the stadium that they're going to be putting together, but I'm not sure if ground has been broken yet.
We're good. As far as I know, groundbreaking is going to happen early next year.
Okay.
And we're building the new stadium out in Brook Park, which is a suburb of Cleveland, right by Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. So we'll have to see how that goes. But whether this is our last game ever in Soldier Field remains to be seen. I've never been to a Bears game in Soldier Field. I've always wanted to. I did look into going to this game because I have some family that live in Chicago who are Bears fans. It just didn't end up panning out. But
Dude, hold on, Josh. Tickets are cheap now. If you can make it out here, like you can get a ticket for like $60 probably. If you got nothing going on and you're willing to brave the cold, man. I mean, you should do it.
I maybe. At the very least, I'm gonna FaceTime with my cousins who are Bears fans during the game. But no, but again, I appreciate you coming on and talking Browns Bears. It's always fun talking with other NFL fans, getting their perspective on the Browns and me giving my perspective on your team. So best of luck on Sunday. I'm sure maybe we'll do a little bit of bantering, but good luck the rest of the way. I hope you guys get into the playoffs, maybe win the division, but best of luck.
Appreciate it, man. No, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, hope things turn around for the Browns soon. I think it's it's a very passionate fan base, and you guys deserve to win. So no, appreciate it. Thanks again.
Yep, I appreciate you.